Hey guys, so today we are taking about 20 pounds of tomatillos and we are going to make them into salsa verde. So this is a recipe I've done before, but I'm going to can it this time. That is not something I've done before. So I've got all my things out that I'm going to need for this sauce, and I've started with a batch of tomatillos that I had in the freezer. Let me show these to you real quick. So I didn't know until recently that you could actually freeze tomatillos, much like I freeze tomatoes. And when you pull them out of the freezer, let's get this one up here for you, they're going to be mushy and very juicy, almost like they're already cooked, but they'll be cold. So if I poke this with a knife, which I'll do for you, my trusty knife here, so even though it's just been in the freezer, the juice will just come right on out, which is nice if you don't want the juice in something. You want it to break open and just be the meat, much like tomatoes, right? So with this recipe, and it's linked below, you can print it out, I need to bring my tomatillos up to a boil, and then I'm going to add ingredients like onion, jalapenos, what other peppers I have, and then I'm going to blend it. It's a really easy recipe. It takes a little bit of time to make the recipe, and you can freeze it if you want. Freezes beautifully, thaws beautifully. And but this time we're gonna can it. We're gonna put it up. We're gonna can it. So let's do that together. So right now, what I need to do is start that water boiling, and I'm using a pressure canner that I have because it's my biggest stock pot. And so now what I need to do is take these and clean them. Take the husks off, clean them to get all the sticky stuff off. Make sure the stem gets out, and any bad areas cut out or wipe off, and then I will pop them into that boiling water. I'll process these. You can process them, mix them, zoom them up either in a batches in a blender or in a food processor. So I'll see which one of mine holds more, and yeah, so here I go. I'm just gonna go ahead and get those all cleaned up. While I'm doing that, I just wanted to show you guys outside. It's the second, third, fourth, or fifth day of the fires in the Oregon area. The Beachy Creek fires, the fire that's closest to us, so it's giving us kind of this redness outside. Really, it should be crystal clear outside with a temperature of around 80, but really it's around 70, 72, and it's got this eerie redness, but that's what the deal with the lighting is. So anyway, here I go. Quick pro tip. Put The Walking Dead on while you're canning. Episodes you've already seen. Keeps you entertained while you're working. Wahaha. So, got my tomatillos in my stock pot. And I've got it up to boil. And now I'm checking my recipe. And I need to add some peppers, a quarter of an onion, and some garlic to cook. So boil tomatillos in water, add chilies, onions, and garlic cloves. So I'm going to go ahead and get all that together. Now since this calls for 1 pound and I have 15 pounds, I need to multiply everything or extrapolate it out. So I'll be doing quite a bit more than that. So I'm going to get started on the onions right now. Alright y'all, so now we have everything in here that needs to be in here. So we're going to bring it back up, and we're going to wait till these peppers get cooked, and then we're going to start blending this up in batches. And again, because I don't have another huge stock pot, I'm going to move it from here into a water bath canner. Don't forget you guys have these at home. They'll hold a lot of fluid, so I'll take it from here. I'm going to try my blender first, my osterizer blender, and put it in here, blend it back and forth, and then I'll take a bunch out of here and start to put it into the canning jars, which then I'll put into a pressure canner. So I'll have to bring in my, I think my big pressure canner, my All-American. Yeah, so that's where we are now, bringing it back up to flame, and I'm waiting for those to cook, and then the next thing we'll do is start blending. Okay, you guys, so this is how the blending is going to play up. I'm going to take part of the tomatillo, cooked garlic, onion, and hot pepper mixture and put it into this blender. And with each batch, I'm going to put in a little garlic till it's gone. So this is raw garlic, but there's cooked garlic in here. And then I'm going to put in a little bit of cilantro each time. It's a lot of cilantro, isn't it? We'll see how much we like it. I like cilantro. I know some people say it tastes like soap. That is actually a hereditary condition, which is interesting. So if it tastes like soap to you, it probably tastes like soap to your parents. Anyway, after I zip that all up, I'll put it in here for safekeeping. And then tomorrow we will bring it up to the boil, and from there we'll put it into jars, and then we're going to can it in a pressure canner. But it's going on 5 o'clock and I'm getting tired. So let's get started and see how long it takes. I'm going to try the blender. If it doesn't work, I'll whip up the food processor. But this is a really good blender, so I think it'll work, and it'll be easier for me to come and pour it rather than to try to hold the blender, you know, or the food processor thing with the blade in it. So, all right, let's give it a shot. All right, so I just did a little rearranging, and I'm going to take my 1 quart Pyrex, dip it into the tomatillo mixture. Try not to put it everywhere. Do that. Garlic. Some cilantro, and let's just do this as a test. It's not a large amount, but let's give her a test. So it's going to be loud. Plug your little ears. All right, let's take a peek. Looks good, sounds good. Look at that color. That is gorgeous, I think. Don't you think? No, you're not up too close, but I like it a little chunky, and I think it's going to work great. Hot as hell. Good flavor. I'm not getting any heat yet, so we're going to keep an eye on the heat. All right. So that said, I'm going to do a whole bunch of this, and you probably don't care to watch me do a whole bunch of this, so I shall do it and we'll be back. Hi you guys. So just a quick reminder on blender use, especially if you're younger or you've only used blenders for cool drinks and things. There's a couple things you're going to want to remember to do. First off, you don't fill up the blender all the way. If you do, the heat with the motion, energy, all that energy getting changed around in there is going to take the lid right up and off. So I do a little less than halfway. I would encourage you to do the same thing. And I'm just going to put some of that greenery on top. This top, I'll just do a quick little lesson here. Actually, I'm going to rinse this off. All right, so here's the top of the blender, and it does have this thingamajig in the middle that you can take out. And what that's for is if the blender is running and you decide, oh gosh, I want some more garlic in there, you drop it in, or lemon juice, or if you're making a cocktail, that's might be when you add the booze, or you need some more ice or whatever. But that's, you only take that off after it's running. And we can show you that in a second. So this does have a lock on it. So if you do have it out, you'll see that there's this area in there that has no, well, anyway, it goes in like that. You can see the clip there and underneath there. Put it in and then twist it to one side or the other to keep it locked in place. So when I turn this on right now, the top is going to go whoop. It's going to come up and it's going to want to come off, even though we have an appropriate amount of stuff in here. So what the professionals do, and what you should do too, is take a towel and put it on the top and hold it down there. Like, that's something else I forgot just a minute ago. It took me a while to get refreshed with the old osterizer here. And then finally, take it off high, put it on to low, not high, put it on to low, and we're going to start by pulsing, and then if you hold in a pulse, it will liquefy. You also have grate, blend, shred, grind, liquefy, and crush ice, and we all know about the crush ice now, don't we? So when you're using this blender, we're just going to, I'm going to back you up a little bit here so you can see, pull that back. So I'm just going to pulse, just to get it going. Pulse, pulse. Did you see some squirt out the top right there? That's why we have this towel. Pulse, pulse, and then I'm going to hold it down. So now I could take off the top to add something. But I don't want to add anything, so I'm going to leave that top on. But I could have, you know, dropped in some somethings. So now I keep that on, or the middle part locked. See all that steam, all that energy that's coming from in there. And then we take a look in here and see how beautiful that looks. And you can see we're up about halfway. And then we dump it into the pot with more. Put it back in its, make sure the bottom is secure. Put it back in its place. And then we start all over again. So anyway, pro tips. Pro tips for the blender. They're not used that much anymore. People don't know this stuff. Right, guys, so here we are. We have finished processing. I've tasted it. I like the heat in here. I do need to add some more salt. I'm going to wait to do that because I'm either going to add lime, which is traditional, or vinegar, which is called for in the canning recipe. And I don't want to add both. So I'm still thinking on that. But what I would like to see is a little more green from the cilantro in here. You see the bits in there, but it's just such a pretty color. I want to add more. I see some of the red bits from the jalapenos, my jalapenos and the pimentos, but I'm going to add some more cilantro. So what I've done, because I've processed everything, is I kept part of the cooking liquid. And so I'm going to blend that up in here with cilantro, a bunch of cilantro, and some of the cooking liquid, and add that in and see if I like the color. So let's do that. All right. Woohoo! Got that mixed up. I wish I was a barista, and then I could make little hearts and shit in there for you guys, but alas, I cannot. It's nice and loose. I'm liking that color a little bit better. If it wasn't so thin, I would do that one more time. And I still might do it one more time. So right now the way it is, this is a tomatillo salsa. So you can, or a salsa verde. So you can use it right now for chips and dips. If you wanted it a little thicker, just when you process it, leave a little less water in there. The cooking water, I kind of scoop it out of the pot, you know. So you could use it for chips, dip right now. You could use it on top of chicken or pork, but lots and lots of different things. So again, salsa just means sauce. So think of it not just in the United States, we tend to think of it just as something that goes with Mexican cooking. You can use this for any kind of cooking, although Mexican cooking happens to be my favorite cooking. So I use this a lot. I made about this much last year, and we went through it in about 6 months. So I planted twice as many plants this year, so I'll have twice as much. But I froze it, like I said, I froze it last year. It freezes really well. If you want to use it as a green enchilada sauce, then all you would do would be to take out a fry pan and then fry it up just a little bit in some oil. Changes the characteristics a little bit. Caramelizes those onions. Tomatillos caramelize a little bit. It gets a lot thicker. So you can do that too. But anyway, so I'm coming to a stop for today. So what I'm going to do is put a lid on this. I'm going to put it out in my garage where it's going to be cooler tonight. I'm going to let it sit overnight, and those flavors are going to meld and mellow and be wonderful. Then tomorrow morning I'm going to bring it back in, heat it back up, and then we're going to pressure can it. But through the magic of YouTube, you're going to see that now. Hi you guys, so it's the next morning. And I've got my tomatillo sauce out, and I'm bringing it back up to a boil. I'm getting all my canning gear ready. And I'm going to be pressure canning in my All-American 941. It is the biggest canner All-American makes. So again, it's the number 941. And it holds, I had to write this down because I keep forgetting, 32 pints or 19 quarts. This thing is a monster. I looked at the site this morning, and they are all sold out until next year. So you can order one and get put on hold or on a waiting list. The nice thing about these canners, not only is it because they're giganticus, but also they don't have a rubber seal that wears out. So it's all steel. And you just put the lid on, line up that arrow with this, and then you'll put these up and twist them into place. So you do this one, and then you'd go crossways over there to that one, and then like this one and this one. You kind of go on that star pattern back and forth. Every once in a while these will get stuck. It's like a vapor lock even after it's all vented and everything. So you can come in just with a small screwdriver and just push that up a little bit, and the airlock, you know, like something like that, but with a flat screwdriver, and the airlock will break. When the airlock is in place, you can't move these things for God nor money. We almost took a hammer to it before we just realized that we should just look it up on Google, and they didn't even have that information on the site. We got it from somebody else who had done a YouTube video on the vapor lock or airlocks. So we have a gauge and we have our weight. So we've got the two systems, and then the release valve, emergency release valve, so we don't blow up the kitchen anymore. Anyway, so that's what this monstrosity is. That said, I'm going to start getting my jars ready, and yeah, let's get rock and rolling. Okay, let's talk about jarring this tomatillo sauce pretty quickly. So the canning people do not recommend canning in quarts for tomatillo sauce, nor do they recommend pressure canning. And I think that's crazy because you're supposed to pressure can low acid foods, right? I keep my jars in the dishwasher to keep them hot. So the reason they don't recommend it is because they haven't tested it yet. You can water bath can them, but you're not supposed to pressure can, and you're only supposed to do it in small amounts. However, pizza sauce, you can pressure can in larger size containers, which tells me that if you can do tomatoes with a little extra acid, why can't you do tomatillos? So I'm doing that, and what that means is that this recipe is not approved. It is not approved for canning in quarts, only in pints, and it is certainly not approved for pressure canning. So if you decide to do this, do it at your own risk. I consulted with several people that I trust that have been canning as long as I have or longer, and we all agreed that this was fine. And the fact that I've been canning salsa in these big containers for a long time. I don't know, what do you guys think? Do you stick by the rules all the time, or do you ever go off the range? I bet some of you go off the range. So what you saw me add there at the very beginning was 1/4 cup of vinegar. So the original recipe called for lime, but because I'm going to be pressure canning and I'd like some more acid in here. I like vinegar. I like the taste of vinegar. I'm going to go ahead and add in 1/4 cup of vinegar. That's also going to help with the stability of this product. So I'm filling these larger jars, and I'm going to give them 1 inch of headspace, and then I'm going to wipe the rim with a paper towel which has some white vinegar on it, and then we're going to put a lid and a ring on it. Alright, so how do you know when you've got 1 inch? So this line right here, this first ring that you screw onto, that's about 1 inch. If you move the jar this way, this is kind of a good way, that second one is about 1/2 inch. So you can eyeball that right there. So I'm just shy of 1 inch. That's fine with me. That's a wide mouth. I've got a narrow mouth here. Look, they're taller. It's about the same thing. So I'm going to go now wipe that, and then we're going to put a ring on it. Alright, so I've got some white vinegar here. I'm just going to wipe off the top, and you're doing this to make sure there's no sticky stuff up there. Anything that will keep the rubber from sealing. This is the rubber part. Here's the ring, so I'm just going to attach that here. Since I'm processing in a pressure canner, everything does not need to be sterile right now for more than 10 minutes. 10 minutes or longer in water bath or pressure canning. Your jars and lids and rings only need to be clean. They don't need to be sterile, because these are going to sterilize in the pressure canner. Now when this comes up to temperature, when that starts to boil in there, it's pretty close right now. I'm going to go ahead and start putting those jars in there. Because this is such a big pressure canner, I can actually stack the jars. I have another rack, and so when I get up high enough, if I want to, I can put that rack down and stack them, and that is why I have this big baby. So I'm going to continue doing this, putting them in there, and then we'll come back when we're done. Okay, you guys, so you can see that I have 8 quarts in the bottom here, but I still have more sauce to go, so we're going to go to the next level so you can see that. I'll put the other screen or the rack down, and I'm just going to stack on top of it, and you get to see 2 levels. Okay, so we've got 8 jars in the bottom, 2 on top, and 1 extra to just put in the fridge and use right away. So now we'll put the top on and get this venting. Alright, so I've got the weight here, so we just turn up the pressure until it starts venting here for a full 10 minutes. And then we'll process 10 pounds pressure for 15 minutes. Okay, you guys, so the venting system, you can see that it's been venting strongly for 10 minutes. And now I'm going to put the weight on, and you can see here there's a 5 pound, let's get that in there, 10 and 15, and we're going to do 10 pounds of pressure for 15 minutes. And remember, that's hot steam coming out of there, so I'm going to just use this and put it on. And when it comes up to the gauge level here of 10 pounds, we'll see it here, this weight will also start to jiggle, so I'll show you what that's about when it comes up to temperature. All right, so we've come to pressure on the gauge, which is 10 pounds, and you can see that the weight is starting to make a sound, and soon it'll just start jiggling. But I'm going to have to move this to a different hot plate because I have this down on low, and it's still getting hotter and hotter, so I'm going to need to move it to one of my other plates to keep it steady. And now, since it's at this temperature, we can go ahead and set the timer for 15 minutes. And then when that's up, we'll come back and take a look. Okay, so that's the sound that the weight makes when it's at the proper temperature. And we're just beyond the 10 pounds. That's the timer's up. So it's time to go ahead and turn this off. And then we just let it sit. Do not take the vent weight off. If you do, the container will quit cool and the jars in there may siphon off, and that's when you lose some of the contents and the seals can break. So we just need to let this jar be until, or this pot be until this gets down to 0 for about 10 minutes. Then we'll take the top off and see if there's any steam coming out or the weight off, and then we'll remove the top. And then we'll still let the jar sit in there for a little while until they're fairly, well, warmer than room temperature, but that we can easily move them to something like this countertop with a towel on it. And it's important to put a towel down because you don't want to have hot jars touching anything like granite or marble that's cold. You can shatter either the counter or the jars, and then all your hard work is gone. So we'll come back when all of this is cooled down, but that'll be a couple hours from now. So 10 all sealed up already. So we'll let them stay out here and cool overnight. Then we'll label the top and put them away.